It's a cold night in Evansville, Indiana. A man says he's headed out to run an errand. But the inside of his vehicle tells a much different story. He's got a gun, a police scanner, and photos of his intended target.
It had been a normal day. I had cleaned the house and done a little bit of shopping at Target and then at the neighborhood Walmart. And then I was at home cooking. I was making mac and cheese and thick-cut pork chops.
Becky Dorr and Robbie Dorr were married. She stayed at home while he worked multiple jobs to provide for the family.
Robbie had just arrived home after working a 12-hour shift at the fire department.
I saw him pull up into the driveway. Didn't see his actual truck, just saw the headlights. Within a minute or so after that, I heard 4 or 5 pops.
And there were several 911 calls that came in. A lot were from neighbors reporting gunshots.
Hi, I don't know what happened, but I heard loud bangs, and then I looked out the door, and the people across the street said, call 911. I heard 5 shots going off consecutively. Did you see a car leave the area? No, we didn't. We just heard the popping.
And then Elizabeth Fox Dorr would be a 911 caller.
I was on 911. My husband just got shot. All I see is blood on the ground.
Tell me what happened.
All I saw was my husband's headlights pull into the driveway, and then I heard a bunch of popping.
When did this happen, ma'am?
Just a few minutes ago.
Is the assailant still there?
No, I didn't see anybody. Hey, for that shots fired run, they said it's a gunshot wound to the head.
It's a shooting, so it would be a heavy police presence there.
Is this your husband?
Yes. About 5 shots.
I'm up here at the intersection of Colorado and Oakley.
Get the med kit! He's still got a pulse.
Gosh.
Starting compressions now. Stay with me, stay with me.
Heart's still pumping.
As far as who did that to Robbie, all I could think was, what am I going to do without him?
One person was shot and killed here tonight, and police still looking for a suspect.
I got a call that there had been a shooting, and so my photographer and I immediately headed there. There was a lot of police officers. Crime scene tape was already up. It was a very hectic scene. I started seeing a lot of firefighters arrive. You don't usually see that at a shooting.
What the? I just realized who it is.
Robbie! Robbie! Got anything?
Connect electrode.
Just flushed Robbie! Robbie! He's done, dude. Damn it!
Oh, God, no.
Damn it!
Once we found out that it was Robbie Dorr, we immediately knew this was a beloved firefighter in this community, that he was a leader within the department. He trained a lot of the rookies.
Hey, man, let's go back this way. Come on.
Let's go right
I know, man. I don't want to be rude or disrespectful, but we got to get the fire out of here because that's one of theirs.
I was kind of in a haze, like a daze. I was doing the motions of what I needed to do. I relied a lot on my oldest son.
When I got there, I got stopped by the police, or maybe it was a fireman, I'm not sure, but said I couldn't go down the street. And I was like, what are you talking about? My parents live down here. I have to get to the house. And I said, my dad's just been shot.
It's my dad. I need to get down there.
I understand. You're not going through this crime scene.
Okay, well then get my mother down here. Her name is Elizabeth Dorr.
She said that he died. Dad is dead. The whole house was swarming with police officers and other people that had been notified. It was traumatic.
My mom had 3 children. Me, I'm the youngest, then Dustin, he's the middle child, and Nathan, he's the oldest. Nathan was spam texting me, spam calling me, and he was like, you need to get home, and now Rob's been shot. I was like, is he okay? He was like, I don't know, Taylor, get home.
Where's my mom?
Follow me. Okay, let's go.
And we walked up to the house.
Still everything's being investigated.
Is he alive?
No, he's not.
Oh my God. The first thing I did was I called out my mom's name, and I ran over to her, and we just started crying together.
look at all angles of everything. Where's his daughter?
The next thing I know, at 7:30 at night, I'm getting a call from Nathan. And he goes, Lindsay's dad's gone. And I immediately dash for the house.
Is that the daughter?
Lindsay turned into a puddle. I mean, how can you not? She was inconsolable.
He was my best friend. All I could think about was I needed to be next to my dad. Like, my dad was alone on that concrete. He didn't have me. I needed to be with him.
Who shot him? I have no idea. Oh, no. I want my dad.
Go out there, okay?
Why?
You can't.
They wouldn't even let me out there with him.
It's definitely chaos, but it's organized chaos because everybody has a job. Once Robbie was pronounced deceased, the patrolmen had to protect the crime scene. So they had to get everybody out of the scene.
I've already told Fire very respectfully that they have to stay outside the tape.
When you're dealing with somebody that's a victim of crime, at the worst, a homicide, like in this situation, you say, okay, this is what it is. We can't change that. We have to put that out of our minds and just treat it like any other investigation and start doing what we do.
Found no shell casings. I want to say very, very little.
The image that stays with me about that night, several fire trucks are lined up and start a procession into town. Later find out that they were escorting Robbie's body to the coroner's office.
When little boys dream of or talk about their hero, sometimes they say Spider-Man. Mine was a true hero. He was a fireman. He was my dad.
He said he doesn't have any enemies. He's a firefighter.
Did Robbie have any enemies? He had at least one.
Are you going to take that down to the stop sign? Well, I feel like we need to set a car up on this side. Okay. I've got like 6 rolls in my car if you need them.
Oh, God, no. Please, no. No. Oh, God, please, no. No.
We're going to walk around the back. They've got some crime scene tape up that we can't go through right now.
Once Robbie was pronounced deceased, the detectives that were arriving knew that they had to start talking to people. So the canvass began immediately, knocking on neighbors' doors.
Hi. Did you guys happen to see what happened out here earlier?
Sure did. We're just sitting there watching TV and just heard noise.
Well, you guys do me a favor and stay inside until we clear out?
Everybody was working for one goal, to figure out what happened to Robbie.
Anybody hear or see anything?
All of us were here. We heard the shots, but we didn't see the vehicle. We knew something funny had happened.
I was in that, see that camper over there? I was in the garage, and I heard 5 shots go off. It scared out of me. I thought it was right outside my door.
So you were in the garage and heard 5 shots?
Yep.
You hear anything prior to that?
No, I sure didn't.
See anything suspicious afterward?
No, I mean, it scared me so bad I turned all my lights off. I didn't know if somebody was going around shooting or something.
The initial assessment, like moments after the shooting, we didn't have a clue what happened.
The detectives are still working on it, okay? I say I don't have a whole lot of information I can give you right now.
Well, someone must have drove down the street, perhaps maybe had an issue on the road with Robbie on his way home from work, and shot at him.
I call it an execution. We checked to see maybe if it was a carjacking, and then we could see with the video that the detectives located that, we ruled out a carjacking.
How could this have happened? Wrong person, wrong time, wrong place. Ran the whole gambit of everything. And for him to be taken out of this world in such a way that it's mind-boggling.
Robbie Dorr was invincible in Engine 1.
He was in it. He loved the fire department. He had just getting out there and helping people.
For nearly 3 decades, this beloved firefighter worked for everyone but himself. Today is the first day in all those years they've worked without him.
I'm sure you've seen the shot we have of Robbie that's really old of him when he had rescued a child from a burning building. He's a hero.
28 years he was on the force. Like, that's a lifetime. I mean, his dad was a fireman. So it's like a family tradition.
Firefighters typically have second jobs. He was a manager at Taco John's. He was doing that to just make extra money.
I quit my job to go be a general manager at Taco John's, and that's how I met Rob. I think the first thing he ever said to me was, "Hey, pretty lady." I missed that.
He had always loved my mom. I do remember Robbie coming to me and saying, would it be okay if I went on a date with your mom? I know I've just kind of been the friend, but I want to be more than the friend. And I was like, that's completely okay with me. And he was elated. You could see him skipping through my store.
Oh, I knew he loved Becky. There was no doubt in my mind. He was 110% in.
Our wedding was in Panama City Beach, Florida. It had rained every day when we first got there. And as soon as I started to walk down the sand, it stopped raining. So it was very, very pretty.
I was over the moon to have Robert as my dad. He stepped in to be a parent. My hero became my dad. Finally, I have this hero that I can call my dad. They were married for 6 months, so very quick relationship, marriage, death.
Before Rob and I were married, I had been married 5 times.
I think that she wanted to have that picture-perfect life, the husband, the children, but just couldn't find it.
Rob was going to be the person that gave my mom a consistent life because my mom was born into adversity. Then she was put into a foster home that didn't have adequate resources to take care of her. She never really had a break until she was ultimately adopted.
I was 4. My sister Mandy was 2. My bond with Mandy, we were the 2 troublemakers of the house.
What was it like growing up with Becky?
She was my big sister. She was a good sister. We played, we traded stickers, we jumped on the trampoline, swam, got in trouble. She was the sister that comforted me. For 47 years, she was everything good and pure and wonderful.
Like my mom was trying to be like Jude Cleaver, perfect stay-at-home wife. But my mom and Robbie, their relationship, it had problems.
He started to question things.
It seemed normal to you? It seemed good?
It was fine until it wasn't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Robbie and I were, best friends for 34 years. And thick, thin, didn't make any difference. We were always there for each other. We've made a lot of runs together. Several fires. Robbie gave 110% on every run he ever made.
Dorr was shot to death outside his Oakley Street home last week. The investigation into his murder continues.
Shortly after the murder, police began searching Robbie's home. In the home, they find something of interest there.
It was a note from Robbie, written to Elizabeth, and it talked about there being some problems in the marriage, perhaps someone else that Elizabeth had been talking to, alleged infidelity.
My dad seemed very happy at first, but then he started to question things. He started to feel insecure. He started to think she was cheating on him. He was like, she always deletes her text messages. Like, she never lets me see her phone.
Robbie had trust issues when it came to that because it had happened to him previously.
I tried to make him feel reassured. I would tell him every time somebody would call me. There were times that my oldest son would call me and he couldn't believe, oh, you're on the phone with him again. He just didn't understand.
My mother did confide to me about their relationship, sometimes a little too much, with too much information, but on that same aspect, so did Dad. Dad asked me to be his confidant. The financial aspect of things created some strain, created some problems between the two of them.
As soon as they got home from Florida, she had a brand new car. And then they got a brand new sectional. They had to buy a washer. He had a credit card out at Home Depot. He had a credit card out on the Ring.
He was borrowed as far as he could borrow. Money got real tight. She wasn't working. He was.
Our biggest disagreement was he wanted me to quit working because when he's off, that was our time to be together. And that's what he wanted. And I wanted to work. But as far as major trouble brewing, no. We were still learning each other.
Do you think Robbie was trying to make Becky's life better?
I do.
Rob wanted my relationship with my sister Mandy to be stronger. So that was what we were trying to do by getting together with them.
When we started going out with them, I was kind of excited about it.
I would be off with Mandy and he would be off with Larry.
How did you meet your fiancé, Larry Richmond?
I met him at work. I was working at the Dollar General. He made sure his hand touched mine. And I thought, golly, this one's bold. So we started talking, and a couple months later, he called one night and said, do you want me to bring my stuff to your house? We were together from that time on.
He pulled up in his car with all of his clothes and said he was moving in. And she was thrilled beans about it.
He was very, very tall. I think he was 6 foot something.
He has a nice smile. I will say that he was the most handsome out of the men that I've seen her date.
Larry was always really gentle with my mom. Like he was always like getting her things, like he was always doing things for her. I don't think I've ever seen her happier.
I just always felt loved. I came home one day and he had gone to the Goodwill and just laid out a bunch of dresses on the bed. It's like, oh, he didn't even know what size I wore. But he was able to pick them, everything fit. I felt fancy. He was really close to his family.
Larry Richmond Sr. is very proud of his son, Larry Richmond Jr.
They were two peas in a pod.
So you bring him to Thanksgiving, introduce him to your family, but you don't tell them about his past.
No.
Why not?
It felt like a mean thing to do to him. That's not how I wanted everybody to see him. That's not who he was to me. That's not who he was trying to be. And Larry had his history. He told me when he was 17 years old, he accidentally killed a man and did 20 years for it.
Well, he actually pled guilty to knowingly killing a person. How did he explain it?
He said he was trying to get the guy to show him his ID because he believed that the guy had done something inappropriate to one of his friend's brothers. And he said that in the process of trying to see the guy's ID, the gun went off.
At first I was like, oh, that's not great. But then slowly, my mom convinced us. She was like, he's a changed man. It was an accident, he's a great guy, which he was. From our perspective, he was a great guy. So yeah, after a while, I just kind of pushed it to the side, I guess.
Does Mandy fall in love easy? I would probably say, yeah, she falls in love very easily. I do too.
My mom's life had just turned around, that it was going to be, wonderful. Things are great. And then all of a sudden your world comes crashing down.
The Evansville Police Department have not identified any suspects.
As far as lists of people that want to hurt Robbie Dorr, we couldn't find a single one.
It's not until we're at the autopsy when we discover something odd.
That is a whole heck of a lot of coincidences.
This has been one of the biggest stories I've covered in my career. Anytime a first responder is hurt, let alone murdered, I mean, that is a big deal, especially here in the Evansville area. We regard our first responders very highly around here. And this, from the very beginning, the community was invested in this story.
So that night on Oakley, we did not find any shell casings. We found in the road a fired projectile that had damage to it.
It's not a casing, that's an actual round. That's a round, yeah.
It's not until the next day when we discover something odd.
And it really started with the autopsy. Had a great forensic pathologist that did the autopsy.
When they pulled ammunition from Robbie's body, there was a mixture. There were jacketed projectiles, there was ball projectiles, and there was plastic wadding. One of our firearms experts said, well, you're probably looking at a horse judge that fires different types of ammunition in one gun. You could shoot a projectile, or you could shoot a shotgun shell, and it all came from the same firearm. A Taurus judge was referred to us as a hand cannon.
Robbie was shot with a very unique gun. That kind of got us off and running, really. Okay, you basically start a war room. You have a big whiteboard, and you put your victim in the middle of that. And then you put a picture of his wife and draw an arrow next to her. Victim's wife, child, best friend. And then you just start building that out. And then you want to look at that board the most and say, okay, who started on the outside but is maybe moving more towards your victim?
We discovered that a Taurus judge was stolen, actively stolen from a pawn shop nearby called River City Pawn Shop.
This company, River City Pawn, played a pretty big role in this investigation because Larry Richmond Jr. worked there and had access to many firearms.
He's a young man with no criminal record. So we go back, printed out Larry Richmond Jr., put him on our whiteboard.
We came across a picture that had a Taurus judge in his lap, and he just sent it to other friends, just showing off the gun that he stole in September of 2018.
The connection with Larry Richmond Sr. was that he had a direct connection with Jr.
When we put Larry Sr. in the system, Detective McCormick ran a criminal history on him and found out, oh my gosh, he's on probation for murder.
I know what it's supposed to make me scared of him. I know it's supposed to make me hate him. I know what it's supposed to do. But it doesn't. He was never scary to me. He was my protector.
Mandy was in the middle. She was in a romantic relationship, living together with Larry Richmond Sr., and she was the sister of Elizabeth Fox Dorr, and they all lived relatively close to one another.
Well, Mandy is my sister. She is 3 years younger than me. Her personality is she's very outgoing. She is, I don't mean it disrespectful, but she's ditzy. Very ditzy, very, I don't think a whole lot bothers her. She's a good person.
The funeral was massive. There were fire stations from all around who came to pay their respect.
There was such a community interest that we even live streamed the funeral on our website for people to watch, because not everybody even could get in.
The funeral was hard. I will never forget the bells. I will never forget all of the speeches that were said.
This legacy of integrity is what the foundation of the fire department is built upon.
I can't listen to bagpipes anymore. I can't. I just can't listen to them. The moment that they handed me his helmet, I lost it. I cried a lot through it. All I could think was, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't have to go through this right now.
I I've seen a few times when, a firefighter or a police officer passes, they get the fire truck out and they get the American flag. And so we went under that, and I mean, it was a beautiful ceremony. It really was.
Resty's your brother. We'll take it from here.
We knew as soon as the funeral was over, it was time to get this investigation going. And the decision was made collectively to bring in several folks.
Things took a massive turn.
And there's cops everywhere, dogs barking, and it was awful.
You had Mandy was in a room, Larry Richmond Jr., Larry Richmond Sr., and then we had Elizabeth Fox Dorr.
I thought he was cheating on me.
Okay. I can tell you he was. When we looked at the situation that we had there, I did make the comment at one time, this show is almost geared for Jerry Springer.
Hands on your head. Walk backwards. Just hold right there. Come around. Yeah, I'll just, you're going to leave your hand. Yes, sir. Put your hands behind your back. Just get over there, man. Put your hand in there. Huh?
We decided to pull over Larry and Mandy as soon as the funeral was over.
What's going on here? I don't tell you, but you got weapons or anything? Any knives or anything? I don't. Okay. What's your name, sir? Larry. What's that? Larry. Larry what? Okay.
I think I just went completely numb. Like, what is happening?
All right, there you go, Steve.
I personally was assigned to Larry Richmond Sr.
Well, Larry, while we've got everybody, it's not just you down here. Obviously, we're looking into the Robert Dorr situation. He was gunned down in his driveway.
What's that got to do with me?
Well, it has to do with everybody in the family. We're trying to get everybody in here and trying to see if there's just anything that can help us with this investigation. Okay. So, do you wish to talk to me about lawyer president?
I have no problem answering any of your questions. I will cooperate fully.
Okay.
Due to my past, I have been incarcerated.
Sure.
I'm on probation. I don't need any problems.
Sure. No, I understand.
So if I'm not under arrest, please get a hold of him. I will come back down here and fully cooperate. No problems at all.
All we're trying to do is find out if you guys know anything that could help us find his killer.
I don't know nothing else. We go out with him. We go out and drink. Outside of that there, I don't know nothing.
They brought us down there, and immediately I realized it's like I am awful close to whatever the crap is happening.
What? And we're going to explain it.
We'll get to all that.
Explain it all to you, okay?
Whatever's going on in your mind, I can guarantee you, it's nothing. It's not a big deal at all. Okay? Where were you at when Robbie was murdered? Do you remember?
I don't know exactly when it was. Can you tell me when it was?
It was last Tuesday. Around 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I was home.
You were home? Okay.
We were home. Were your kids there? Was Larry there? Yeah, we were all there.
Investigators asked her where Larry was at the night of the murder. She reported that he was with her the entire night.
Hey, Mandy, do you know something that we don't?
I filmed him in the Twilight Zone. This is what you watch on TV. This you watch this happen to people on TV, not to your family.
I think Mandy really believes in this man and believes that he can better himself.
It's sometimes our benefit to grab all individuals that are involved in a case at the same time.
Agent Bill Gray picked up Richmond Jr. up from the pawn shop when he got off work that night and brought him downtown. I had some questions for Larry Jr. as far as stealing the firearm and giving it to his dad.
We have 2 more people down here now involved in this case. And one is your dad.
Okay.
And things aren't looking so good here.
Okay.
What do you know about this guy?
It came up missing the day of or a couple of days before I started at the pawn shop.
That's not true. I've talked to the regional manager, I've talked to the ATF guys. That's not exactly the way it's going down. The guy came up missing while you were an employee.
Yeah, yeah. I was sitting in the pawn shop, and then somebody came up and said there was a gun outside. And then we called it in, and
Larry Richmond Jr., he lies that he didn't know about the gun, he didn't steal the gun.
I got some bad news for you, son. I think you're heading down the same path your dad's heading. I don't think things are going to work out too well here. So just hang tight a couple minutes and...
To my knowledge, I don't believe that Elizabeth knew that the others were in custody.
After the funeral was over, Detective Keene and Detective Hands came and asked me. They said that they had a phone of mine and they had the key to my house. They would like to ask a few more questions.
Detective Keene ran the first whole part of the interview, going back over what they talked about that night, confirming everything she said.
Okay, so you get home in the pork shop, so you get those ready.
I just had the oven preheating, and I was getting ready to, get the mac and cheese. I was getting it out of the cabinet, and I saw the truck lights come into the driveway, and then I heard these popping noises. Then I looked out the door. I saw Rob at the end of the driveway, shoved the dog back, closed the door, and went running down the driveway.
We felt that she was hiding something.
And then when I showed her the raw data from her phone download.
Do we know who this number is right here?
I don't recognize it. They were showing me phone numbers, but there was no name to a phone number, and I kept telling them I don't know that phone number.
Leading up to Elizabeth's interview, we had gathered cell phone records, actual cell phone device records, and we knew there was a deleted phone call right before the 911 call.
But you can't delete it off the company records, and this is the company records. This is straight from Sprint.
I understand that.
Okay.
I don't recall talking to someone like 5 minutes before Rob was killed.
I knew that was a lie. So then you just kind of go, okay, why is she lying then?
I've been honest with you from the get-go. That's all I ask of you is your honesty. Okay?
And I understand that. I don't recall talking to someone like 5 minutes before Rob was killed. I don't.
You were able to tell us down to the cents how much you paid for your pork chops earlier that day at Walmart, but you can't remember who you had a phone call with just prior to your husband getting executed in your driveway. Just didn't ring right to me at all.
Let me finish. Cannot change what happened, but you can change it from how it goes on here now by telling the truth. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay, so take a deep breath and tell us who you talked to 5 minutes before your husband was killed in your driveway getting out of his truck in the back of the head. We're asking you questions we know the answers to, baby.
This is the Evansville Police Department adult interview suite. We have 4 interview rooms available to us. Throughout our time interviewing these subjects, we were determined that we were being lied to. There were inconsistencies in stories, and it took a good long while to start getting things sorted out where we had a good idea of what was happening.
When you're in the interview room and they're lying, you try to never take police work personal.
I honestly did not recognize the phone number.
Okay. You just have to keep confronting them with the facts, and you just slowly work through the case.
Just let it out. Just tell us the truth. You didn't orchestrate it, then what happened? What's your... Okay, then you didn't orchestrate it.
I didn't know it was going to happen.
Tell us the truth.
And the questioning was, had you ever deleted anything off of your phone? And when she says no, the information I had in my file folder at the time, I knew that was a lie.
Nothing in that conversation had anything to do with hurting anybody.
Why delete it then?
Because I typically delete. I deleted the phone call. I delete my phone calls every time I get off the phone with somebody, unless I talk to you regularly.
She deletes absolutely everything. And I know for a fact, if I were to send her, I love you, Mom, she would keep that and she would delete everything else. She will send a text message and then she will delete it. I don't know why.
If you look at the timeline of the deleted phone call, just minutes before Robbie's killed and the 911 call is made. So that's a big deal.
So who did you talk to 5 minutes before your husband was gunned down in the driveway? Becky, we know the answer. So you can let us do the talking for you, or you can do the talking for yourself. And please tell the truth. So who was it?
My sister's fiance.
Elizabeth had deleted all of Larry Richmond Sr.'s phone calls in her phone.
You knew. Not only did you know you talked to him that night, you knew you deleted it, and then you knew I was going to ask you about it when we came back in here.
It's human behavior to try to protect yourself, or like, oh my gosh, I'm into this, how am I going to get out of it? Maybe if I just stick with these lies.
I didn't want you to think that I was having an affair with him because I have not had an affair.
The way the interview went with Becky Fox Dorr, was it a perfect interview? No, because we didn't get her to truly confess. I think it was the next best thing.
I didn't want to say that I had talked to him because that makes it look like I did it.
She was denying the phone call, admitted she denied it. She knew she deleted the phone call. She hid it from us.
New developments tonight in the murder of a firefighter in Indiana.
Robbie Dorr's wife tonight is in jail for deleting a phone call she allegedly received before calling 911.
That moment was a moment of, could she? Would she? Why would she? It was a whole gambit of emotion.
Elizabeth was originally charged with the obstruction of justice. She soon was out on bond.
Larry Jr., what's up, dude?
Larry Jr. was walking a fine line between going to prison for a very long time and not. And it wasn't until much later in the same evening that he knocked on the door and said, hey, I need to talk to investigators again because I need to tell them something. He tells investigators, my dad has guns at Mandy's house.
My dad said if anything was to go down, he would bury them good.
It is said that Larry Richmond Sr. had buried a tote full of guns in the backyard of Mandy's house where he was living at the time. He's even caught on video doing this.
The detectives came across a surveillance system from the house just directly to Mandy's, Larry's fiance's house. It shows Larry coming out of the house in the evening with his box under his arm and grabbing some type of utensil and going behind the garage and then coming back empty-handed.
One morning, I wake up, I'm sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden, there are police cars everywhere. That whole block, this whole block of Sheffield was full of police cars. And I'm like, get up here, see what's going on.
And they searched the whole grounds, and when they got to that fire pit, they started digging. And they almost dug every square inch back here. I mean, they dug everywhere. Hung over the fence, and I said, what's going on? He says, well, we're hunting for stuff. And then I saw some guns in the other policeman's hand. I said, oh, that's what you're looking for. And he goes, yeah, we found several where the fire pit was.
That box was taken to headquarters, and you could have heard a pin drop. They did it right. Our crime scene detective came in and then slowly started processing that box. And we're all like, please take out a tourist judge or tourist judge ammunition.
I remember being in the newsroom that day and hearing on the scanner that the police were at the home and they had found some guns, but not the murder weapon.
The murder weapon in Robbie Dorr's murder has never been found.
So at this point, police still do not have a murder weapon. They have not named a suspect. So we're wondering, what is their next step?
I found something that raised the pinnacle of all flags. I mean, I can't even call it a red flag. It's like the sirens going off. There was a handwritten message that said, we need to talk.
He was my best friend. He was the person I called when I was having a bad day. He was the person I called if I had a flat tire on the side of the road. If I just needed to talk, it was him. When my dad passed away, we were not in a great place. Me not liking Becky put a very big strain on our relationship. I wish he would have saw it. I wish he would have listened to me when he said it was going too fast. It's a lot of I wish.
When my mother was arrested, I was like, no, they have the wrong person. This can't be. This is the woman who's helped raise me. No one ever thinks of their parent to be that person. The puzzle pieces kind of started to fall into place. After the funeral, I was going through the condolence cards, and I came across one that was from my Aunt Mandy. I didn't quite know what to think of it at first, but it was that guttural instinct that said, this is not right.
Like I said, my name's Anthony.
I need to get a hold of someone, and I didn't have anyone to get a hold of except for one detective. I was going through condolence cards.
Okay.
And I found a card from Larry Richmond and my Aunt Amanda. And there was a little slip of paper, like notebook paper, that said, we need to talk, with his phone number and Larry. It looks like he had written it on the corner of like a notebook piece of paper and ripped it out.
So it's kind of the last second
thing. It wasn't written in the card. I think it was put in after, like, Mandy and him signed it.
Okay.
Because he's the one that presented it to my mother. He gripped that thing all the way up until it passed into my mother's hand.
I don't know why he was trying to reach out that way. It doesn't make sense to me. He was standing right there when he handed it to us, so he could have just said what he needed to say right then.
Okay, I'll be back to see that. Okay.
That day, they asked me if I knew that he had criminal history, and I said no, and they told me everything that he had done. That's kind of odd that we have a murder, 20-year sentence, he's out for 1.5 years, and then another murder happens. Nobody knew that he had a criminal past. At Thanksgiving,
my Aunt Mandy brought a convicted felon to a Christian household and had dinner with everybody and didn't tell a single person that he had just gotten out of prison for murder.
So on that piece of paper was a phone that Larry Richmond Sr. was in possession of at the time of his arrest. He got that phone from a person named Laura Riggle. During our investigation, we did talk to Laura Riggle.
We would like to know more about the nature of yours and Larry's relationship.
Larry and I got to know each other more, I should say. It was in December before Christmas we started talking. And then we actually started seeing each other in January.
You said seeing each other, you mean like going on dates and stuff like that? Okay.
And I do know he lives with Mandy.
Uh-huh.
She does not know.
So what was gonna happen between him and Mandy?
They were breaking up.
Through the course of our investigation, there were several women who were romantically involved with Larry Richmond Sr. Around the time of the murder in February of 2019.
What about him and these other women he messes with?
I didn't know about the others.
What motive do you think that he could have for doing something if he did it?
I can't imagine him doing it. There is no motive.
The first night that we had contact with Mandy, she was a mess.
I don't know. I'm not a troublemaker. I don't know.
And then the next time we had kind of built a little bit of a rapport with her.
So let's go back further to the day that Robbie gets killed. To your best recollection, where's Larry?
Mandy, why did you tell investigators that Larry was with you at home that night?
Was Larry there? Yeah, we were all there. We were all there.
Kids, Larry.
Because he was with me all the time. He was there every night. I didn't know what night they were talking about.
The night of the shooting.
But I didn't know what night that was.
But that's what they were talking to
I
about.
thought they meant, did he come home that night? Yes, he came home that night. I knew this was bad. But my first inclination wasn't, oh, what'd you do?
So they tell you a lot of what's going on.
Oh,
they reveal
yes.
some things to you.
Oh, yes.
So
I thought he was cheating on me.
Okay. I can tell you he was with a lot of women, and we've had one just walked out of here, and we had one in here last night. Okay. So you're not the only one in this trick bag.
So you had another life going on.
Yeah. Girlfriends.
Plural. Yeah. You don't think he was using you?
No. For what? For what? I'm a train wreck. I got this heart, about all I have to offer.
Okay. Do you have any other suspicions that Larry and your sister had anything going on? Okay. Your sister is in custody for deleting a phone call that was very important. And there's a 5-minute phone call right before Robbie's murder. I mean, minutes before Robbie's murder. And guess who that came from? Larry. What do you think's going on between Larry and your sister?
I thought we went out with him 3 times.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Were your sister, Becky, and Larry having an affair?
That is the word.
After the murder, Amanda Fillmore was never a suspect, and police found her to be telling the truth.
Mandy was never charged with anything in this case. Mandy was deeply in love with Larry Richmond Sr. In her mind, that Larry had nothing to do with this.
Looking back, it was very apparent. My mom had something to do with it. When one of your first question is, after your husband dies, what about his pension?
I call her in a fit of anger, a murdering.
It was strange being in the house by myself. I'm in Rob's house, who is no longer alive. And my mother is in question now for his murder. I felt terrible about even just being in his house. Why am I in his house and he's not?
It's our top story tonight. Charges have been dropped against the wife of a murdered Evansville firefighter 7 months after they were filed. Elizabeth Fox Dorr was charged with obstruction of justice.
My mother did finally get released from jail. She lived with me. She and I had some very tense conversations. Like, why do they believe that you did this? I don't know, Nathan. Well, why would they ever? Nathan, I don't know. The night of, she talked to me about his pension. Will I get any of it? How do I get a hold of it?
The day after the murder, we were told by a spouse of a firefighter. She had showed up at the firehouse asking about his pension.
Yes, I did ask about the pension after he was killed, because I had so many people asking me about his pension and his life insurance. That's why I went where I thought that I could find those answers.
The fact that she was there the next day inquiring about a pension, that was definitely on our radar. Larry Richmond Jr. told us a lot about Larry Sr.
I'm going to give you the floor here for a second, and I want you to tell me anything that you left out from the other night. Do you think your dad's involved in the murder of Robbie?
I hope not.
As far as Junior, it all didn't come out at one time. We didn't know about the affair until later.
Has he ever talked about Becky before?
He said one time that they went out to Pistons, and I guess Becky was drunk, and the firefighter dude was there too, and they was just dancing and doing all this, and Becky kept looking at him. He said she was cute and fine. Dog, that's your little sister. What are you doing? I was like, did you Becky? He was like, no. And then I asked him again. He was like, man, I had to. I was like, dog, you were down bad.
And Evansville father and son are facing federal weapons charges.
Junior, he did something terrible by stealing a gun, but he did take responsibility for it and eventually pleaded guilty. He didn't have any part in the murder.
Larry Sr. was convicted for possession of a handgun, bike felon, and having obliterated serial numbers. He was in custody, so we just kind of say, hey, let's slow everything down. He's not a threat to society.
I thought it would be a simple, speedy process. And here we are 1 year later. The police, it didn't feel like they were making headway on what happened. And that's when my anger started to really set in.
My mother got another boyfriend very quickly. And then she very quickly after that, almost like the next day, got another boyfriend. I have had several strong words about my mother in private, talking with a therapist, with police.
She's engaged again. Engaged again? Yeah. And like we just discussed, it hasn't even been a year. Correct. She had like 2 boyfriends before this gentleman.
My oldest son, Nathan, misunderstood the situation. I was not engaged to a man after Rob died. I did have somebody ask me to marry them, but I told them that I didn't think that I would ever get married again.
Mom, with that on your hand, she was, oh, nothing. I called her, in a fit of anger, a murdering.
Servant?
I thought you were babe.
I believe it was a year into the case. Lead investigator Blake Keene did a press conference.
What's the person of interest in this case?
He identified Larry Richmond Sr. as a person of interest.
41-year-old Enzo resident, Larry Holly Richmond Sr. Richmond Sr. had a relationship with the Dorr family at the time Robert was executed.
We were pleading for the public to, if they knew any information, to call in.
There was the news conference, and then we didn't hear much at all after that.
I'm glad they have a person of interest. But where do we go from here?
There's then a big development in this case. An inmate who was locked up with Larry Sr. told investigators that Larry Sr. confessed to killing Robbie.
Muhammad reached out to the Evansville Police Department. He reported that Sr. and him had confided in each other. They were bunkmates.
This is Detective Keene and Detective Lewis. It is August 25th, it's around 16:43 hours. I'm here with Muhammad. Who are you talking about? Larry Richmond. Holly Richmond, yeah. Okay. He mentioned he killed a firefighter in Evansville, Indiana. He said he saw Robert in front of his house at nighttime. He had an affair with her. He said if they get rid of Robert, he said the black beneficiary will be like him.
It appeared that the information from Muhammad was somewhat accurate according to our theory of the case. There was information that was not shared publicly that was known in what he had reported.
How is this cell person supposed to know that we're having an affair? Did he witness it, or are we just grasping at straws? I never had an affair with Larry Richmond Sr. Never. There was nothing between us.
Shortly after Larry Richmond Sr. is named a person of interest in this case, investigators want to get a hold of his cell phone to see if it could hold any clues.
Our hypothesis is that Larry Richmond Sr. had his phone on him and that the location data can put him at the scene of the crime at 7:05 p.m. Unfortunately, we didn't have that information. Larry Richmond Sr. did not want to provide a passcode to the phone.
There was frustration. The family was frustrated. We were frustrated. We felt like we were close, and you just needed this one big break to really push this case forward.
Rob was a firefighter. It's not the kind of case that just goes cold. Everybody wants an answer.
It was very trying. It's frustrating. It's heartbreaking. It feels like an eternity. 78285, code 6, 105 North Avenue.
Yeah, I'll go. You're going to leave her handcuffs, sir. Put your hands behind your back.
When Larry Richmond Sr. was taken into custody on March 4th of 2019,
Tell me what's going on. I'll let somebody else tell you that.
we seized 2 phones from him. We got search warrants for those phones, but what ultimately slowed us down was we didn't have a passcode for Larry's iPhone.
I'm John Carter. I'm a criminal investigator with the High-Tech Crime Unit out of the Vanderbilt County Prosecutor's Office. The equipment that the Evansville Police Department had at the time, you had to have a passcode in order to get the information from the phone, which is where we took over with our new tools and techniques to acquire that passcode.
The computer system just runs an algorithm of passwords, and we have no say in how long that is.
Those algorithms can take seconds. We've had phones that have taken up to 2 years. I believe in this particular case, it was anywhere between 6 to 8 months.
I remember that day well, that John called me and said, hey, we got into Larry Sr.'s phone. We have the content.
Utilizing the digital evidence that we discovered from his phone, we were able to build a bigger picture of what had occurred that night.
In the 6 o'clock hour, Larry Richmond Sr.'s phone is all within that area of the Door residence, as if he's just slithering, snaking around. There's foot traffic, and then eventually in the alley from 6:31 to 6:39.
This guy is able to be in the alley at the exact time a fireman comes home.
Shortly after, he's talking to Elizabeth on the phone at 6:46 to 6:51.
In the interview with Becky Fox Dorr, we got her to admit that, yes, I told him he would be home shortly.
We don't know where Larry's location was between 6:52 and 7:14 because his phone is powered off. It's not until you actually came to this alley and saw it with your own eyes you can really understand now where he was. This is the path that Robbie took the last moments of his life. He would have turned north here on Oakley to get to his house. This was not a normal time for Robbie to be coming home.
He was picking up a shift for someone else, which was also important because it meant he came home at night. Normally his shift would dictate that he would work and come home in the morning.
And there was only one person that would know that Robbie's on his way home or what time he's expected home, and that's Elizabeth.
As far as her cooking that night and preparing dinner for Robbie, in my personal opinion, Robbie Dorr is never going to eat those pork chops that night. I truly believe that this timeline was set up.
Fact is this, she's at home, she's making dinner, there's someone waiting, Larry, with a gun. My dad pulls into a driveway, and he literally, quite literally runs out of his shoes to get away. To get away. I don't think his door was even shut before shots started going off.
I don't know how to explain Larry Sr., the evidence, digital, of him being around the house. I don't know how to explain that. I do know that his mother lives very close by, like I think a street over. All I know is I did not know he was around the house.
I think that she 100% knows what happened on that conversation with Larry.
Yeah, I just heard shots fired. First Avenue, Colorado. It's the alley behind. How many did you hear? 5.
The night that Rob got murdered, Larry said he was going to go to his mom's house and move some furniture. Long story short, I get there. He's not there. He's gone to run an errand for his mother.
We had a residence here that heard the shooting. They heard all 5 shots and stepped out onto the front porch and watched a subject sprint from one side of the street to the other and disappearing between homes and businesses. At 7:11 p.m., video surveillance shows that he's arrived at Circle K, and he powers his phone back up while he's at Circle K at 7:14 p.m. And once we reviewed that video surveillance, we noticed, it's February, it's cold, and Larry is only wearing some shoes, some jeans, and a sleeveless t-shirt. We thought that was a little odd, but, it seemed to us that Larry didn't have a care in the world.
We never stop on cases, and especially on a murder case.
We had to take all of the different pieces, provide what our theory was, essentially, and then allow a jury to decide.
A short while ago, Larry Richmond Sr. and Elizabeth Fox Dorr were charged with the murder of Robbie.
When they finally told me they were going to charge both of them with murder, I was like, well, all right, let's go. We've got this.
It absolutely led our news that night.
Fox Dorr is charged with murder alongside Larry Richmond Sr.
I didn't do it. That is the truth. I didn't do it. If you're asking me if I shot and killed Robbie Dorr, no, I did not.
Your son says you smashed it. Talking about that.
Never. Come on. Never. Never happened. Never happened.
Oh, I was very surprised to be charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. I was shocked.
They don't want you to listen to the truth. I felt like I just listened to a screenplay of a crime novel that was based entirely on fiction.
Elizabeth Fox Dorr is charged with murder and conspiring with Larry Richmond to commit that murder. Her trial is scheduled to be heard first. She's pleaded not guilty. If she's convicted, she could face up to life in prison.
My name is Mark Phillips, and I am lead counsel in the trial involving our client, Becky Fox Dorr.
My name is Rob Phillips, and I'm the co-counsel in the case of Becky Fox Dorr.
You have heard supposition that there was a conversation between Larry and Becky about a murder, and that's not true.
I'm Diana Merce. I'm the Vanderburgh County prosecutor. This was the first murder case that I took on as elected prosecutor, so the pressure was on. I didn't intend for any of this to happen. This is what the defendant told detectives who were questioning her that night about the death of her husband. Becky Fox Dorr was the co-conspirator, not the shooter. And so, in a conspiracy case, you have to prove a meeting of the minds, and you're doing that with circumstantial evidence. They have a phone conversation around the time of the murder, and it lasts for 4 minutes and 18 seconds, and then he turns his phone off. His phone's completely black with no data at all.
Around 7:12 p.m., Larry Richmond Sr. Pulls up in a Ford Taurus, and soon after enters the store and then leaves.
Just 15 minutes before Robbie Dorr was ambushed and killed, the defendant spoke with Larry Richmond Sr. on the phone. As soon as the defendant was finished talking, she deleted that phone call.
The only thing that she did was not remember the deletion of a call, and that somehow morphed into this conspiracy theory.
And that night, did you delete Larry's phone number?
It is a habit for me to delete phone calls. Because Larry's not a person I normally talk to, so I delete it.
It's ridiculous that it's about a phone call that I took and I deleted.
The defense says there's no evidence suggesting their client planned the killing, and today they tried to hammer that point home by grilling the original detective in the case.
There was a phone conversation that you asked Becky about at some point, correct?
Correct.
And you allege it's with Larry Richmond Sr., right?
It is, yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
You have no idea what they talked about, do you?
No.
And you know who initiated that call, don't you?
He did.
In fact, in your investigation, you don't have any evidence that Becky Dorr ever initiated a phone conversation of any kind with Larry Richmond Sr., correct?
Correct.
Fox Dorr and Richmond Sr. may have been romantically involved.
She has photos with him. She spent holidays with him. And they even went on a double date with her sister and Robbie Dorr.
There was a dramatic moment at the end of the day today. The son of co-defendant Larry Richmond Sr., he took the stand.
Larry Jr. was a good witness. He didn't want his father bringing him down. And he knew if he didn't tell the truth that it would.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Elizabeth Fox Dorr? Have you ever met her?
Yes.
She got into the vehicle and that's the first time you saw her?
Mm-hmm.
And did anything happen before she got out of the car?
They kissed.
They kissed?
Mm-hmm.
And was it a mutual kiss, or could you tell?
Yes, they both leaned in.
I did not have an affair with him. I had no relationship with him. His relationship was with my sister.
Larry Richmond Jr. took the stand and told a story about seeing his father kiss Becky behind Robbie Doerr's home in approximately March of 2018.
And if there's evidence in this trial that she didn't even live there in March of 2018, that put a dent in your story, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You didn't know who she was before your dad got out of prison, correct?
I may have my time dates.
I didn't ask you that. Is that your sworn testimony here today?
Yes.
Larry Richmond Sr. hadn't even been released from prison at that point. Not only that, Becky Fox Doerr wasn't even living with Robbie Doerr at that point.
The prosecution inquired about whether Fox Doerr might have been motivated by financial gain.
Raise your right hand.
Did your mother ever talk to you about the firefighter pension after the murder of Robbie Doerr?
Yes.
When's the first time she brought that conversation up?
From my remembrance, almost the same night.
And how many times did you say that she talked to you about it?
We had a conversation about it daily, and I got frustrated several times, and I was like, Mom, there are procedures we have to go through to get to that point. There were times it looked as if like someone had just gut punched her. It was sad to see this woman you grew up with sitting there. Her hair wasn't done like she normally would do it. Her makeup wasn't done. It was different. And I think it made it a little bit harder for me to be on the stand with her in the room looking the way that she did.
When Nathan started testifying, it was like he flipped a switch and just turned into somebody else. It was pretty hard to watch.
You know your mom was not a beneficiary for purposes of any financial benefit, correct?
I don't know who's beneficiary on anything.
If you were to learn that your mom had no financial interest as a result of Robbie's death, would that surprise you?
I mean, no.
I was not motivated to kill him for his pension. I didn't kill him. And Rob and I hadn't even talked about life insurance or pension or any of that. We were just being married.
They don't want you to listen to the truth. I felt like I just listened to a screenplay of a crime novel that was based entirely on fiction.
I ask you to return the only verdict that's justified by the evidence in this case: murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
With that, you may begin your deliberation.
All right. As prosecutors, you know who's guilty, right? But that's not good enough. The standard is beyond a reasonable doubt.
When the jury returned a verdict, I can just remember being out on the set and the producer telling me in my ear, we're going to air it live.
I close my eyes and tears just start flowing.
State of Indiana versus Elizabeth Joanne Fox Doerr. Verdict.
The courtroom was tense in the moments leading up to the verdict reading, and after more than 4 hours, the jury reached a decision.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of count 1.
I held my aunt's hand, and I held Nathan's hand, and I closed my eyes. And tears just start flowing.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of count 2.
Like that is all we could have ever hoped for.
Thank God this is done. Thank God Dad can rest peacefully.
When I heard the guilty verdict, I couldn't believe it. They got it wrong. They got it wrong. And all I could think was, this is my life you're playing with.
Becky would later be sentenced by a judge, 90 years in prison. So basically, she will be spending the rest of her life behind bars.
All right.
It's horrible. I mean, I'm not guilty. There are people that are guilty and say they're guilty that get way less time than I'm looking at.
The next time that she is going to be a part of the free world will be in a funeral in a graveyard somewhere.
Everybody just has this idea that she's this villainous woman that was out for money, and I want more people to see the actual good side of her, the kind of person that she actually is. It's not adding up. There's something missing.
It's awful to watch people that you love suffer their consequences.
And do bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe your sister Becky plotted to kill Robbie?
I don't think that it matters what I think.
You don't have an opinion about whether Becky and Larry plotted to kill Robbie?
The rational part of my brain says it would appear such, but I think the irrational heart is still begging the universe for a different answer.
Police say back in 2019, Richmond conspired with Elizabeth Fox Dorr to murder Robert Dorr in the driveway of his home. His trial in the murder case is set to begin in December.
I got a call from the state public defender. They were looking for someone who was qualified to handle a life without parole case.
She sent me an email and said, would I be interested? I said, well, this might be one of the only times I get a case like this, so let's give it a shot.
The murder trial of Larry Richmond Sr. He's the man accused of shooting and killing Evansville firefighter Robert Dorr.
During Becky's case, we heard all of this testimony and saw a lot of the evidence at that time, so we knew what to expect going into this one.
The whole conceit of the state's case is that this was a murder for hire.
Day 2 of testimony in a high-profile murder trial in Evansville. Today, jurors heard from someone at the center of the case.
You know, we're relying heavily on witness testimony. So, Mandy, the night of, where is Larry Richmond?
Larry's trial. What was that like?
Just sad.
And the essence of what you said at the stand? What was it?
That I didn't know where he was.
That you didn't know where he was?
That he wasn't at his mom's. But like I said, he came back so fast, I didn't think anything of it.
So they tell you the phone is pinging at the scene of the crime, and then you see him going into that gas station. What conclusions do you come to?
He was going to get cigarettes.
I think that she was having problems, and maybe still is, grasping that he did this, but I just found her to be just honest and open and able to tell the jury her story because she was telling the truth.
Larry was never at the Fox Dorr's house during the time of the shooting. He's at his mom's house the entire time. Larry was involved with a lot of women, so his phone was constantly ringing. And so mom had said, hey, turn your phone off, spend time with me. And then he goes to get gas, turns his phone back on, and then we see him at the gas station.
This is a circumstantial evidence case, and the evidence was just piled up high against their client.
The fate of an Evansville man is now in the hands of a jury.
I think they deliberated for around 11 hours or so.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Larry Ali Richmond, guilty of murder.
I was hurt. I was sad for Larry because that was not what I had envisioned. I had not envisioned hearing one word. I had envisioned hearing 2 words.
This is the end, and we can finally be able to put this past us and be able to just grieve the way we need to instead of it being thrown in our face constantly.
The man convicted of killing an Evansville firefighter 7 years ago will spend the rest of his life in prison.
Ooh, some days I'm madder than hell. It was 7 years ago. I have to, sometimes I just have to put it in the past and be like, okay, this is where we are now. He does not say he does it. He to this day did not do it.
Well, then you understand he's lying to you.
Right. And himself.
People watching this are going to ask, what keeps her connected to Larry after everything you've been through?
After everything happened, my mom was angry, but she still loved him. And I don't think she has ever stopped loving him.
People watching this are going to ask, what keeps her connected to Larry after everything you've been through?
I think over the course of time, I've been through so many ups and downs with do I believe it, don't I believe it? And then I'm talking to him and he's convinced me that he didn't do it, and then I get more information. And it's just, I've gone back and forth so many times that I've just decided that he's another human being that God has given me to love.
Is he seeing anyone else?
I don't know, probably. I hear that's what the inmates do. But I have no way of knowing. I don't ever know.
Would that matter to you?
No.
So you're still sort of together. You're still
Yeah. Yeah.
engaged.
Yeah. But I'm also, God, I just feel so stupid when I talk about it, but I get what I need from him.
From Larry?
Yeah. He wants to talk to me in the morning. He wants me to tell him when I'm home safe from work. He has begged me not to leave him. He says he needs me, and I want to be loved and wanted and needed and all the things.
You regret bringing him into your family?
I mean, yeah, look at us now.
This whole case is built upon one thing, a deleted phone call.
I don't know if my life would have unfolded differently if I had just told him about the phone call. I think, honestly, I think I'd still be in the same spot. They would still think that we had had an affair. They would still think that, I conspired. They grabbed a hold of me and didn't let go.
Becky was loving. Becky was love. Becky's not evil. Becky's not a monster. Becky's not all these things everybody thinks she is.
Do you talk to her?
No. I mean, I wrote her a letter and I told her that if it was true that I forgave her, and that if it wasn't true that I was sorry this was all happening.
This is still very hard to take. I mean, all of this. Because to realize that this is my life. Rob was a sweetheart. He was a good person to everybody. He became my best friend. And I miss him every day.
At the Evansville Fire Department, their newest fire truck, then they dedicated that in honor of Robbie. He has a fire engine that will do what he used to do, roll up to the scenes now and protect people and save people's lives.
Dad can finally rest. He deserved more than what he got. He deserved not for that to happen.
I'll never be able to call him. I'll never get to hear his voice.
What is that, man?
I'll never get to hug him again.
He should still be here. With mine and Lindsay's kids, to be a grandparent to these children. And they're missing out. We're missing out.
It's now yours. I know. It's big.
A family still remembering, and we should point out that Robbie's wife, Becky, had her appeal denied. Her relationship with son Nathaniel remains strained. He tells us he will never visit her in prison.
Meanwhile, David, convicted gunman Larry Richmond Sr. declined our interview request, but tells us he will appeal his conviction. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.
Sudden and tragic passing from a heart attack, Nancy lived alone on the property, eventually choosing to utilize the main Victorian home as a vacation rental while she resided in a cozy, converted studio apartment on the estate. In May of 2018, Nancy decided to sell Paradise Ranch. The maintenance of the large property had become overwhelming, and she wished to dedicate her time fully to her spiritual ministry, teaching others about the Bible. To prepare the home for sale, she had hired several local contractors, painters, and tradesmen to perform necessary repairs and renovations. On Friday, May 4th, 2018, a large wedding party consisting of more than 20 guests checked into Paradise Ranch to celebrate a vineyard wedding at a local winery. The bride and her bridesmaids were staying in the guest house and main Victorian home. Nancy welcomed them warmly, introducing herself and offering a hug before retiring to her studio apartment, which was separated from the main guest quarters by a single wall. The following morning, Saturday, May 5th, Amanda became deeply concerned when her mother failed to arrive for a scheduled Bible study. Such an absence was completely contrary to Nancy's disciplined and devoted nature. Amanda contacted her mother's neighbor, asking her to check on the apartment. When a neighbor arrived, she found a scene that was immediately alarming. The front door of Nancy's studio was wide open, the television was blaring, and Nancy was nowhere to be found. Amanda rushed to the property, and upon entering the apartment, her worst fears were realized. On the floor lay two large, dark stains that appear to be blood. The sheets and bedding from Nancy's bed were missing, and the bedroom walls and headboard were marked with a fine pattern of blood spatter. On a bench near the door sat Nancy's purse, her car keys, her cell phone, and her iPad, indicating she had not left the home voluntarily. Amanda immediately called 911 to report her mother missing under highly suspicious circumstances. Senior Deputy Degnan and other officers from the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office arrived quickly at the scene. They were joined by Reserve Detective Clinton Cole, who was assigned to investigate the disappearance. From his first steps into the cottage, Detective Cole recognized that the space was a crime scene. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Nancy may have been surprised in her sleep or had opened the door to someone she recognized. As the forensic team began documenting the scene, they noted several critical details. A beige pillow resting on the bed featured a significant blood stain, and upon closer inspection from atop a ladder, a forensic technician identified a faint, partial print of a hand within the blood. This suggested the pillow may have been used as a weapon to smother or suffocate the victim. The investigators swabbed the bloody handprint for foreign deoxyribonucleic acid and sent it to the state laboratory for urgent analysis. That evening, the investigation received a significant lead. Officers from the California Highway Patrol discovered a bundle of bedding and women's clothing, discarded on the side of La Ponza Road, approximately 6 miles from Nancy's home. The items included a gingham print sheet that matched the remaining bedding in Nancy's room, a dress, a pair of shorts, and shirt. The clothing and bedding were heavily stained with blood. Amanda confirmed that the items belonged to her mother, solidifying the theory that Nancy had been severely injured and transported away from her home against her will. The presence of over 20 wedding guests on the property created a highly complex investigative challenge. These individuals had ready access to the estate and represented an immediate pool of potential suspects. Detective Cole and his team spent hours interviewing every guest, seeking to establish a detailed timeline of their movements. The wedding party had attended a rehearsal dinner at a local winery on Friday evening, returning to Paradise Ranch around 10:30 in the evening and retiring to bed by midnight. The bride, sleeping in the guest room directly adjacent to Nancy's apartment, had worn earplugs and reported hearing absolutely nothing during the night. One guest, however, initially raised suspicions due to his inconsistent statements regarding whether he had attended the dinner or remained alone on the property. When investigators attempted to follow up with him, he became defensive and uncooperative. Seeking to resolve this red flag, Detective Cole and his partner traveled to the man's residence in Northern California. Upon their arrival, the guest's attitude had changed. He was highly cooperative, provided photograph evidence confirming his presence at the rehearsal dinner, and voluntarily provided a deoxyribonucleic acid sample, which successfully cleared him of any involvement. With the wedding guests eliminated as suspects, investigators focused on the numerous contractors who had worked on the property. Amanda identified 2 individuals of interest. The first was Sean Bloom, a general contractor who had recently been fired by Nancy after a heated dispute over the quality of his work and outstanding payments. Bloom had threatened legal action, and his animosity toward Nancy was well documented in a series of tense text messages. The second individual was Carlo Fuentes Flores, a 38-year-old local painter who had spent several weeks painting the exterior decks and trim of the main Victorian home. When initially contacted by telephone, Fuentes Flores was highly polite and cooperative, expressing sadness over Nancy's disappearance and recalling her kindness in offering him homemade tamales while he worked. As the days passed without a breakthrough, the community grew anxious, and the family endured agonizing uncertainty. Search and rescue teams, utilizing helicopters, canine units, and ground searchers, scoured the rugged foothills and dry riverbeds surrounding El Faro Road, but found no trace of Nancy. A critical analytical breakthrough occurred when investigators examined Nancy's telephone records. They discovered that an attempted 911 call had been placed from her cell phone at exactly 12:17 in the morning on Saturday, May 5th. The call had lasted for 0 seconds, indicating it had been abruptly terminated or blocked almost immediately after dialing. This provided investigators with an exact time stamp of when the assault had occurred. Shortly thereafter, the State Crime Laboratory delivered 2 major pieces of information. First, the laboratory had isolated an unknown male deoxyribonucleic acid profile from the bloody handprint on Nancy's pillow. However, a search of the combined deoxyribonucleic acid index system returned no matches, meaning the perpetrator had no prior felony record. Second, Sean Bloom voluntarily provided his deoxyribonucleic acid, which did not match the profile on the pillow, officially clearing him of suspicion. Faced with a stalling investigation, the sheriff's office decided to deploy a highly sophisticated investigative technique, geofencing. This process involves securing a warrant to obtain anonymous location data from Google for any mobile devices that were active within a specific geographical boundary during a defined time frame. When the geofence data returned, investigators analyzed the coordinates surrounding Nancy's cottage. Amidst the devices belonging to the sleeping wedding guests, they identified a single mobile device that had pinged near Nancy's studio at 1:33 in the morning and again at 1:52 in the morning. Investigators secured a subsequent warrant to identify the subscriber associated with that device. The name returned was Carlo Fuentes Flores. This revelation shocked the investigators. Fuentes Flores was a family man with a wife and a young daughter, possessing no criminal record in either the United States of America or Mexico. He was widely regarded by his employers and clients as a quiet, tidy, and exceptionally polite professional. Yet, the electronic footprint placed him at the crime scene in the middle of the night. To understand his potential motive, investigators obtained a warrant for Fuentes Flores' Google search history and mobile phone contents. The digital analysis revealed a dark, deeply compartmentalized double life. Beneath his polite exterior, Fuentes Flores harbored an obsession with older women, frequently searching for cougar, pornography, and escorts. Furthermore, his phone contained numerous self-recorded videos of sexual encounters with various women, revealing a highly active, hidden lifestyle of excessive drinking and sexual exploitation. To secure an arrest, investigators needed to match his deoxyribonucleic acid to the profile on the bloody pillow without alerting him to their suspicion. A specialized surveillance team followed Fuentes Flores as he went about his daily routine. When he sat down for lunch with his wife at a local restaurant, an undercover officer watched as he drank from a glass bottle of Coca-Cola. As soon as the couple departed, the officer retrieved the discarded bottle from the table. The laboratory analysis was swift and conclusive. The deoxyribonucleic acid from the Coca-Cola bottle was an identical match to the profile found in the bloody handprint on Nancy's pillow. On the morning of the interrogation, Detective Cole and his partner, Dave, sat across from Carlo Fuentes Flores in a small interview room at the Templeton Sheriff's Station. They began by asking routine questions about his painting work at Paradise Ranch, prompting him to confirm his familiarity with the property and his interactions with Nancy. Fuentes Flores maintained his polite, cooperative demeanor, reiterating that he had only heard of her disappearance from his boss. When Detective Cole asked directly if he was involved in her disappearance, Fuentes Flores denied it calmly. At that moment, the detectives shifted their strategy, informing him that they possessed conclusive forensic evidence placing him in Nancy's bedroom on the night she vanished. The psychological shift was visible. Fuentes Flores' posture slumped, his breathing became shallow, and he confessed that he had made a mistake. However, he initially attempted to minimize his actions, fabricating a story that he had returned to the property in the middle of the night to retrieve a ladder for a job the next day. He claimed that as he was backing up his truck, he accidentally struck Nancy, who had walked up behind him in the dark. He claimed he carried her into her apartment to help her, where she subsequently collapsed and died. The detectives remained skeptical of this explanation, pointing out that an accidental collision would not account for the extensive blood spatter in the bedroom or the foreign deoxyribonucleic acid on her bedding. Under continued questioning, Fuentes Flores' narrative dissolved. He admitted that he had entered her apartment with the intent to assault her, believing she had been flirting with him when she offered him tamales. He admitted that he struck her to quiet her, raped her, and subsequently suffocated her with her pillow to prevent her from identifying him. In a surprising moment, Fuentes Flores offered to lead the detectives to Nancy's remains. He was placed in an unmarked police vehicle, directing a convoy of investigators east from Paso Robles toward the remote, arid landscape of the Carrizo Plain. The search in the fading light was difficult. Fuentes Flores struggled to identify the precise location in the vast, open terrain, stopping at several spots without success. Finally, as doubt began to creep in, Detective Cole noticed a small, unnatural mound of rocks off the side of the dirt road. Upon approaching the rocks, investigators discovered Nancy's skeletal remains, which had been significantly scattered by wild animals. The sight of her remains, left in the cold wilderness, brought a profound sadness to the search team, contrasted by anger at the callousness of her killer. Fuentes Flores fell to his knees, weeping and asking the detectives to tell his young daughter that he was sorry for his mistake. Upon returning to the station, Fuentes Flores wrote a formal letter of apology to Nancy's family, and he was officially charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances of rape and burglary. While in jail awaiting trial, Fuentes Flores maintained a plea of not guilty. His defense team launched a vigorous effort to suppress his recorded confession, arguing that because he was a native Spanish speaker, his Miranda warnings should have been administered in Spanish, despite his fluent English. conversation during the interrogation, and in recorded phone calls with his wife. From jail. Following a detailed hearing, the judge denied the motion, ruling that the detectives had fully respected his constitutional rights and that he had clearly understood and waived them. Faced with the prospect of a trial and the potential for a death sentence, Fuentes Flores agreed to a slow plea arrangement. Under this legal framework, the defense waived a jury trial, allowing the prosecutor to present the complete investigative file directly to the judge, who would make the final determination of guilt. In January of 2022, the judge reviewed the extensive evidence, including the geofencing data, the deoxyribonucleic acid matches, and the recorded confessions. The judge found Carlo Fuentes Flores guilty of first-degree murder with the special circumstances of rape and burglary, sentencing him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The conviction brought a somber sense of closure to Amanda and her family. At Nancy's memorial service, held at a beautiful vineyard near her home, hundreds of community members gathered to celebrate her life. Today, Amanda continues her mother's passion, riding Montana through the same golden hills of Paso Robles, keeping the memory of her mother's generous spirit and deep faith alive. The triumph of justice and forensic science. When we examine these two tragic cases side by side, we can observe several profound truths about the nature of criminal behavior and the tireless efforts of the men and women who work to uphold justice. Both Corey Richins and Carlo Fuentes Flores operated under the delusion that their public identities, one as a successful, grieving mother and entrepreneur, the other as a polite, humble craftsman, would shield them from suspicion. They compartmentalized their dark desires, whether driven by financial desperation and romantic fantasy or by hidden, violent sexual obsessions, believing they could outsmart the communities they inhabited. Yet in both instances, their downfalls were secured by the meticulous application of modern forensic techniques. In Utah, the science of toxicology exposed the presence of street-level fentanyl, dismantling the narrative of a sudden natural death, while digital forensics uncovered the damning text. Messages that established a clear timeline of intent. In California, the emerging technology of geofencing allowed investigators to construct a virtual net over a remote property, identifying a single anonymous device that shattered a killer's anonymity, while deoxyribonucleic acid analysis provided the irrefutable physical link to the crime scene. These cases stand as a testament to the dedication of local law enforcement, who refused to accept superficial explanations and pursued every lead with integrity and empathy. They also served to honor the memories of the victims. Eric Richins, a devoted father whose love for his children remains protected, and Nancy Woodrum, a woman of deep faith and kindness whose legacy continues to inspire her family and community. In the end, these narratives remind us that while evil may seek to hide behind a mask of normalcy, the persistent pursuit of truth and the power of human justice will ultimately prevail. The duality of the human psyche and the illusion of grief. In a study of criminal psychology, one of the most compelling and deeply disturbing phenomena is the concept of the curated persona. Human beings are inherently social creatures, capable of constructing elaborate outward-facing identities that project warmth, success, empathy, and moral rectitude. Yet, beneath these carefully manicured surfaces can lie a starkly different reality, driven by cold calculation, desperation, and an absence of empathy. To a criminal psychologist, the contrast between who a person claims to be and what their actions reveal is where the truth resides. This analysis explores two distinct cases of tragic loss, deceptive behaviors, and the painstaking, brilliant work of modern law enforcement. Both narratives unfold in scenic, tight-knit communities where such dark acts seem entirely out of place. The first takes us to the snow-dusted peaks of Summit County, Utah, where a wife and mother of 3 boys attempted to write her own narrative of grief while hiding a trail of financial devastation and lethal betrayal. The second leads us to the sun-drenched vineyards and oak-lined roads of Paso Robles, California, where a beloved community pillar vanished from her sanctuary, prompting an investigation that pushed the boundaries of modern forensic technology. By analyzing these cases, we do not merely seek to recount the details of crime. Rather, we examine the subtle psychological fractures, the behavioral anomalies, and the tireless dedication of the investigators who refuse to let these mysteries remain unsolved. In doing so, we honor the memory of the victims, Eric Richens and Nancy Woodrum, and observe the slow, inevitable triumph of justice over deception. Part 1. The Silent House in Summit County. In the early morning hours of March 4, 2022, the quiet mountain town of Kamas, Utah, was shattered by a frantic call to emergency services. At exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, Corey Richens dialed 911, her voice trembling as she reported that her 39-year-old husband, Eric, was unresponsive, cold to the touch, and not breathing. The emergency dispatcher, trained to handle high-stress situations with calm precision, instructed Corey to begin cardiopulmonary resuscitation. The audio recording of that call captures the rhythmic, desperate countdown of the chest. Compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count out loud so I can hear you, the dispatcher urged, attempting to keep the caller focused on the life-saving measures. Within minutes, first responders, including paramedics, firefighters, and sheriff's deputies, arrived at the sprawling, beautiful residence. The scene inside the master bedroom was chaotic yet quiet. Eric Richens lay on his back on the floor beside the bed. Paramedics immediately took over, utilizing an automated chest compression machine that filled the room with a rhythmic, mechanical hum. Despite their rapid response and tireless efforts, there was no pulse. Eric Richens, a robust, athletic, and highly successful business owner, was pronounced dead at 3:58 in the morning. For the deputies on the scene, the initial moments of an unexpected death. Investigation are critical. They must balance compassion for a newly bereaved spouse with the objective necessity of documenting the scene. In the body worn, camera footage captured by the responding officers, Corey Richens can be seen, pacing, visibly distraught, trying to process this sudden tragedy. When questioned about the timeline of the evening, Corey explained that she and her husband had been celebrating a significant milestone. Her real estate business, which focused on flipping residential properties, had just secured a major financial victory. To celebrate, she made a specialized mixed drink for Eric in their bedroom around 9 o'clock the previous evening. Corey further explained that one of their 3 young sons, who were 10, 9, and 6 years old, had woken up suffering from night terrors. In her effort to soothe him, she had gone to the child's bedroom and fallen asleep beside him. When she woke up in the middle of the night and returned to her own bed, she reached out for Eric and realized he was ice cold. The officers, seeking to understand Eric's medical history, asked if he had any underlying health conditions. Corey and her mother, Lisa Darden, who arrived shortly after the call, mentioned that Eric suffered from Lyme disease, which he had contracted during a hunting trip. They suggested he received weekly allergy shots and frequently looked pale or complained of chest pains. Additionally, Corey mentioned that Eric occasionally took a tetrahydrocannabinol gummy to help him sleep, though she was unsure if he had done so that evening. As a medical examiner and detectives prepared to transport Eric's body, a paramedic noted a surprising amount of blood around the victim's mouth, which began to discharge during the chest compressions. This unusual physical symptom led to an initial working hypothesis among the first responders that Eric might have suffered a sudden, catastrophic brain aneurysm. To his family and friends, this explanation was difficult to accept. Eric was an avid outdoorsman, a hunter, who traveled as far as Africa for big game expeditions and a dedicated youth soccer coach who maintained excellent physical fitness. The idea that his life could end so abruptly at 39 years old seemed impossible. Part 2. The Two Faces of Corey Richens. To understand the psychological complexity of Corey Richens, one must examine her background and the deep-seated ambitions that drove her. Growing up, Corey's family moved frequently, relocating every 2 or 3 months due to her parents' work in construction. While she described her childhood as comfortable, it was far from wealthy. As a young woman, Corey worked for her aunt's cleaning company, scrubbing the bathrooms of the massive, luxurious mansions in the affluent resort town of Park City, Utah. It was during these years that a powerful ambition took root. Corey dreamed that she would not always be the one cleaning these beautiful homes. She wanted to be the one who owned them. She wanted to prove to the world, and perhaps to herself, that she could rise above her humble beginnings and occupy the upper echelons of society. When Corey met Eric Richens, sparks flew immediately. Eric was significantly older, established, and came from a well-respected family that owned a successful cattle ranch in Summit County. He was a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, having served a 2-year mission in Mexico City and had built a highly profitable stone masonry business called C&E Masonry. Their relationship progressed rapidly, and Corey became pregnant with their first child. However, the union faced immediate hurdles. On the day of their backyard wedding, just as Corey was preparing to walk down the aisle, Eric's mother presented her with a prenuptial agreement. The document was clear. Eric's masonry business would remain solely his, and Corey would only benefit from it in the event of his death while they were still married. Though deeply upset, Corey signed the document, and the marriage proceeded. Over the next 4 years, the couple welcomed 3 sons to the outside world. They were the picture of the perfect American family. They lived in a beautiful home, took lavish vacations, dined at expensive restaurants, and possessed significant financial resources. Eric was a deeply devoted father, coaching his son's soccer teams and building a life centered on family and outdoor adventure. Eventually, Corey sought more than the life of a homemaker. In 2019, she launched K. Richens Realty, a real estate and house flipping business. Within 2 years, she was managing 15 renovation projects. Simultaneously, on the surface, she was an incredibly successful, self-made businesswoman. Yet, immediately following Eric's death, the facade began to crack. The morning after a gathering of friends and family at the Richens' home to reminisce about Eric, a bitter dispute erupted. Corey, anxious to locate Eric's will, hired a locksmith to drill open the safe in the garage. Eric's sister, Amy, arrived at the house and was outraged to see the locksmith. A screaming match ensued. During this confrontation, Amy dropped a devastating piece of information. Eric had secretly altered his estate planning documents in 2020. He had established a private trust, named his sister Katie as the trustee and executor, designated his 3 sons as the sole beneficiaries, and placed the family home into the trust. When Amy declared to Corey that the house was no longer hers, Corey's frustration boiled over. According to police reports, Corey physically assaulted Amy, punching her in the face and neck. She was subsequently arrested and later pleaded no contest to misdemeanor assault. The tension between the 2 families was painfully obvious at Eric's funeral. Corey stood isolated on one side of the chapel, while Eric's family stood on the other, refusing to interact. Within weeks of the burial, Corey filed a civil lawsuit disputing the validity of the trust. Part 3. The Author of Grief. In the face of rising suspicion from her husband's family and the ongoing legal battles, Corey chose a highly unusual path for a grieving widow. She decided to write a children's book. Corey claimed that as she struggled to help her 3 young sons cope with the devastating loss of their father, she searched extensively for literature that could explain the concept of death to young children. Finding nothing that met her needs, she decided to create her own book titled Are You With Me? The book, which she self-published using a ghostwriter, is structured in 2 parts. The first half is written from the perspective of a young boy who wonders if his deceased father is still present in his life, watching his soccer games and supporting him from afar. The second half of the book shifts to the perspective of the deceased father, offering comforting assurances that he is indeed still there, clapping and cheering for his son, even if he cannot be seen. Corey dedicated the book to her amazing husband and wonderful father, featuring an illustration of their family of 5, complete with their dog. In March of 2023, 1 year after Eric's death, Corey embarked on a public relations campaign, appearing on local television and radio programs to promote the book and share her journey as a grieving widow. To the viewers of programs like Good Things Utah, Corey appeared to be a courageous, vulnerable young mother doing her best to navigate a terrible tragedy. She spoke movingly about the difficulty of the nighttime hours and the importance of establishing routines to help children process grief. The hosts praised her strength and thanked her for creating a resource that would help other families. However, the public narrative took a sudden, shocking turn just days after her television appearance. The broadcasting station received an anonymous email, written in all capital letters with multiple exclamation points. The message was simple and chilling. She killed her husband. Part 4. The Toxicological Revelation. While Corey was promoting her book of comfort and healing, state investigators had been quietly compiling evidence that painted a far more sinister picture of Eric's death. The official autopsy and toxicology reports had finally been completed, and the findings were staggering. The chief medical examiner determined that Eric Richens did not die of a brain aneurysm, Lyme disease, or any natural causes. His cause of death was acute drug intoxication, specifically the toxicology screen revealed a massive concentration of fentanyl in his system, 5 times the lethal dosage. Crucially, the medical examiner noted that the drug detected was not medical-grade fentanyl, such as that prescribed by a doctor or administered in a hospital setting. Instead, it was illicitly manufactured fentanyl, the type produced by drug cartels and sold illegally on the street. The revelation that Eric had died of a massive fentanyl overdose sent shockwaves through those who knew him. Eric did not use illicit drugs. He was a health-conscious, athletic father who actively avoided drug culture. With the cause of death established as a homicide, the Summit County Sheriff's Office launched a full-scale criminal investigation. Detectives secured a search warrant for the Richens residence, looking for any trace of illicit substances. While their physical search of the home did not yield any actual fentanyl, they seized Corey's electronic devices, including her cell phone and computer. During the search, Corey maintained her innocence, expressing shock and confusion over the toxicology results. She even called the chief medical examiner directly, asking detailed questions about the chemical compounds found in Eric's stomach. In a recorded phone call, she asked about acetylfentanyl, a specific variant of the drug. The medical examiner explained that fentanyl is an impurity commonly associated with illicitly manufactured street drugs rather than pharmaceutical products. Corey's defensive posturing did little to deter the investigators, who were starting to look closely at her personal and financial life. Part 5. The burden of debt and deception. As detectives analyzed Corey's financial records, they discovered a hidden reality that stood in stark contrast to her public success. Corey's real estate business was not thriving. It was collapsing under the weight of astronomical debt. At the time of Eric's death, Corey was in the process of attempting her most ambitious project yet, the purchase of a massive, unfinished luxury estate in Midway, Utah, valued at nearly $3 million. She envisioned converting the mansion into a premier wedding and event venue, estimating it would require millions of dollars in additional renovations. To fund this and other projects, Corey had turned to hard money lenders, securing short-term, high-interest loans that carried extreme financial risk. She was deeply in debt, owing millions of dollars to over 20 different creditors. In her desperation to secure capital, Corey had engaged in a series of highly deceptive financial practices. In 2020, Eric discovered that Corey had forged his signature to secure a $250,000 line of credit against the family home, a property that Eric solely owned. This discovery had devastated Eric, shattering his trust in his wife. He immediately consulted a divorce attorney and took steps to alter his estate planning, ensuring that his sister Katie would control his assets and that his children would be the sole beneficiaries of his trust. Though Eric and Corey ultimately stayed together and attended marriage counseling, the financial deception continued. The investigation revealed that Corey's financial desperation had also impacted those closest to her. Her best friend, Chelsea Barney, had entrusted Corey with $45,000 as a down payment for her first home. Corey had promised to facilitate the transaction, claiming she would secure the loan while Chelsea paid the monthly mortgage. However, Chelsea eventually received foreclosure notices and discovered that Corey had never properly filed the deed. The home was foreclosed upon. Chelsea's family was evicted, and their hard-earned life savings were entirely gone. Similarly, a young family, Taryn and Alec Wright, purchased a remodeled home from Corey's company, only to discover extensive, hidden toxic mold and water damage behind the newly painted walls. The family became severely ill, lost their home to foreclosure due to the compounding costs of temporary lodging, and filed a lawsuit against Corey, who denied any prior knowledge of the issues. As investigators build a timeline of the months preceding Eric's death, they discovered that Eric had fallen violently ill on multiple occasions and that he had openly expressed suspicion that his wife was attempting to poison him. In 2019, during a vacation to Greece, Eric had ordered a non-alcoholic drink due to medication he was taking for Lyme disease. After taking a single sip, he became violently ill. He called his sister Katie from the hotel room, stating that he believed Corey had tried to poison him. Later, on Valentine's Day of 2022, just weeks before his death, Corey purchased a specialty bagel sandwich from a local diner and left it for Eric with a loving note. After eating one bite of the sandwich, Eric suffered a severe allergic reaction. He was forced to use his son's epinephrine auto-injector, take a massive dose of antihistamines, and sleep for several hours. When he woke up, he sent a text message to a close friend stating, "You almost lost me this time. I think she might have poisoned me." Part 6. The Drug Link and the Secret Life. To secure an indictment for murder, investigators needed to establish a direct link between Corey Richins and the illicit fentanyl that ended Eric's life. A newly appointed lead detective, Jeff O'Driscoll, decided to review the phone records of all parties involved. In doing so, he identified 3 primary numbers that Corey communicated with constantly: her husband, her mother, and a woman named Carmen Lauber. Carmen Lauber was a house cleaner who had worked for Corey's real estate business. She also possessed a lengthy criminal record involving drug offenses. Recognizing her as a potential source of illicit substances, Detective O'Driscoll conducted a targeted search of Carmen's trash, discovering drug paraphernalia. This provided the necessary probable cause to secure a search warrant for Carmen's residence. During the search of Carmen's home, deputies made 2 significant discoveries: an illegal firearm, which Carmen was prohibited from possessing as a convicted felon, and a copy of Eric Richins' obituary taped to her vanity mirror. Facing the prospect of decades in federal prison for the firearm and drug charges, Carmen agreed to cooperate with the prosecution. She revealed to detectives that Corey had contacted her on 2 separate occasions in early 2022, specifically requesting strong pain medication, which she referred to as the Michael Jackson stuff. Carmen admitted that she procured fentanyl pills from a local dealer named Robert Crozier and delivered them to Corey. According to Carmen, after the first delivery, Corey contacted her again, stating that the pills were not strong enough and requesting a more potent dosage, which Carmen subsequently provided. The timing of these transactions was highly incriminating. Phone records showed an exchange of 30 text messages between Corey and Carmen on Valentine's Day, the very day of the poisoned sandwich. Furthermore, another delivery of pills occurred on February 26, just days before Eric's sudden death. As investigators dug deeper into Corey's digital communications, they uncovered a completely separate motive for the crime: a long-term, passionate extramarital affair. For several years, Corey had been involved with a 41-year-old handyman named Robert Josh Grossman. Josh was a combat veteran who had served in Iraq and was living a transient lifestyle, often couch surfing or working for free in exchange for lodging and support from Corey. The text messages between Corey and Josh, which spanned months, revealed a deeply emotional and romantic connection, while Josh expressed intense, sometimes naive affection. Corey used the relationship to project her dream of a future where they would live together at the Midway Mansion, operating the event center and raising children. Crucially, on the Wednesday before Eric's death, Corey sent a text to Josh, pleading with him to be patient. "Hang in there until Friday," she wrote. "Life is going to be different, I promise." Friday was the day Eric Richins died. Part 7. The Jailhouse Letters and the Courtroom Battle. On May 8, 2023, Corey Richins was arrested and charged with 1 count of aggravated murder and multiple counts of possession of controlled substances with the intent to distribute. While held without bail at the Summit County Jail, Corey's penchant for writing would once again prove to be her undoing. During a routine search of her cell, corrections officers uncovered a handwritten 4-page letter hidden inside her belongings. The letter, which began with the phrase "walk the dog," was addressed to her mother, Lisa. In the letter, Corey instructed her mother to contact her brother, Ronnie, and direct him to provide false testimony. She laid out a specific narrative for Ronnie to deliver, suggesting he should claim that Eric had admitted to obtaining pain pills and fentanyl from Mexico through ranch workers. The prosecution immediately filed charges of witness tampering, arguing that the letter was a clear attempt to fabricate evidence and influence witnesses. Corey's defense team argued that the letter was merely a draft of a fictional manuscript she was writing, but the court found the explanation highly implausible. The preliminary hearings and subsequent bail hearings presented a mountain of circumstantial and forensic evidence to the public. Among the most damaging revelations were Corey's internet search history recovered from her phone. In the days and weeks following her husband's death, and after learning that law enforcement was investigating, Corey had searched for terms such as luxury, prisons for the rich in America. Can cops uncover deleted messages on iPhone? If someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as, and what is a lethal dose of fentanyl? In May of 2024, Corey's original defense attorney withdrew from the case due to a conflict of interest. She was replaced by 2 experienced public defenders, Kathy Nestor and Wendy Lewis. Shortly after their appointment, Corey released a recorded audio statement to the media asserting her innocence and claiming she had only ever sought to protect Eric. When the trial finally began in the small mountain courthouse near Park City, the courtroom was packed with media, family members, and curious onlookers. The jury consisted of 8 members, 6 men and 2 women. The prosecutor, Brad Bloodworth, delivered a direct and powerful opening statement detailing Corey's staggering debt of over $4,500,000, her unhappy marriage, her affair, and her calculated decision to murder her husband for financial gain. The defense countered by playing the emotional 911 call, arguing that the state's case was entirely circumstantial and lacked any direct forensic evidence showing how the fentanyl had actually been administered to Eric. The prosecution's case lasted 13 days and featured powerful testimony. Eric's sister, Katie, recounted the devastating phone call from her father on the morning of Eric's death. Carmen Lauber took the stand, weeping as she admitted to her role in procuring the lethal drugs and expressing her desire to take accountability for her actions. The most anticipated witness was Corey's former lover, Josh Grossman. Visibly uncomfortable and emotional, Josh confirmed their affair and the authenticity of the romantic text messages. He recounted a chilling conversation that took place in the weeks following Eric's death. While sitting in Corey's car, she had suddenly asked him if he had ever killed anyone during his combat service in Iraq and how it had made him feel. In a stunning tactical decision that shocked the courtroom when the prosecution rested its case, the defense team immediately rested as well, calling 0 witnesses to the stand. They believed the prosecution had failed to meet its high burden of proof. However, the jury thought otherwise. After deliberating for just under 3 hours, the 8 jurors returned a unanimous verdict, guilty of aggravated murder and all remaining charges. Foreperson Laura later shared that the deliberations were intense and thorough, but the overwhelming combination of financial motive, the affair, the toxicological evidence, and the highly incriminating search history left no doubt in their minds. Justice had finally been served. For Eric's family, the verdict brought definitive closure, though the pain of his absence remained. The 3 young boys who had lost their father to violence and their mother to a life sentence were adopted by Eric's sister, ensuring they would grow up surrounded by love and the memory of their devoted father. Part 8. The Shadow over Paso Robles. While the mountain valleys of Utah were coming to terms with the conviction of Corey Richins, another community nestled along the scenic central coast of California was remembering its own journey through tragedy and the extraordinary application of forensic science. Paso Robles, California, is a place of breathtaking beauty, known as El Paso de Robles, or the Pass of the Oaks. The region is characterized by rolling hills, majestic valley oaks, grazing cattle, and world-class vineyards. It is a peaceful getaway town halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, where life moves at a deliberate, gentle pace. Yet on May 5, 2018, a dark shadow fell over this idyllic landscape. The focal point of the tragedy was a secluded property on El Faro Road, known as Paradise Ranch. The property featured a beautiful, remodeled Victorian home with wraparound porches shaded by a massive willow tree. It was owned by 62-year-old Nancy Woodrum. Nancy was a fixture in the Paso Robles community. She owned and operated a popular hair salon downtown called The Strand, where she worked alongside her daughter, Amanda. Nancy was known for her warmth, her generous spirit, and her deep devotion to her faith as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. She loved horseback, riding, finding peace and solace in nature, and harbored a deep hope for a peaceful future. Nancy's life had been marked by great resilience in the face of profound personal tragedies. Years earlier, she had lost an infant son, Christopher, who died at just 10 days old. Later, her teenage daughter, Amy, passed away after a long battle with cystic fibrosis. Finally, her husband, Robert, a local contractor who had helped her build Paradise Ranch, died suddenly of a heart attack. Through all of these devastating losses, Nancy maintained her strong faith and her positive outlook on life to help manage the property after her husband's death. Nancy began renting out the large main house as a vacation rental while she lived in a small, cozy guest cottage on the property. On the weekend of May 4, 2018, a large wedding party checked into the main house at Paradise Ranch. The bride, her bridesmaids, and their families had traveled to the area for a beautiful vineyard wedding at a local winery. Nancy, welcoming as always, greeted the guests, gave the bride a warm hug, and explained that she would be staying nearby on the property if they needed anything. The wedding festivities proceeded smoothly, but on Saturday, May 5, Amanda grew deeply concerned when her mother failed to show up for a scheduled Bible study. Such an absence was entirely uncharacteristic of Nancy. Amanda asked a neighbor to go to the property and check on her. The neighbor arrived to find the door to Nancy's cottage wide open, the television blaring, and no sign of Nancy. Amanda rushed to the property. As she entered her mother's cottage, she was met with a scene that filled her with immediate panic. The home was tidy, with Nancy's purse, car keys, cell phone, and iPad sitting on a bench. However, the bedding was completely missing from the bed, and there was a dark, disturbing stain on the carpet. Upon closer inspection of the walls, Amanda saw what appeared to be blood spatter. She immediately dialed 911. Part 9. The Crime Scene and the Mysterious Trail. Reserve Detective Clinton Cole of the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office was off duty on that Saturday afternoon when he received a call from his sergeant. He was instructed to immediately head to El Faro Road to assist with a highly suspicious missing persons case. When Detective Cole arrived at Paradise Ranch, the gravity of the situation was immediately apparent. Responding deputies briefed him on the scene inside the cottage. There were no signs of forced entry, but the physical evidence pointed to a violent struggle. Inside the bedroom, investigators identified 2 large blood stains on the floor. There was blood spatter on the headboard, on a nearby cabinet, and on the back wall. A beige pillow sitting on the bed also bore significant blood stains. Detective Cole immediately realized that Nancy had not simply wandered away. She had been violently assaulted and taken from her home against her will. The peaceful vacation rental had instantly transformed into an active, high-stakes crime scene. As the forensic team began processing the cottage, a crucial discovery was made. Several miles away, an officer with the California Highway Patrol contacted the Sheriff's Department to report that he had located several items of bedding and clothing discarded along the side of La Ponza Road, approximately 6 to 7 miles from Nancy's house. Detectives rushed to the location and recovered a gingham print sheet, a pillow, a dress, a pair of shorts, and a shirt. The physical appearance of the bedding matched the remaining items in Nancy's cottage, and the fabric bore heavy blood stains. When shown the clothing, Amanda confirmed through tears that the items belonged to her mother. The evidence suggested a terrifying scenario. Nancy had been wrapped in her own bedding and transported away from her home, either severely injured or deceased. With more than 20 wedding guests staying in the main house, just yards from Nancy's cottage, investigators faced an incredibly complex task. Every single guest was a potential suspect or a vital witness. Detectives began conducting extensive interviews with the members of the wedding party. The process was logistically challenging and emotionally taxing for the guests who had gathered for a celebration only to find themselves in the middle of a homicide investigation. To the frustration of the detectives, despite the close proximity of the main house to Nancy's cottage, separated by only a single wall, not a single guest reported hearing anything unusual on the night of the disappearance. The bride explained that she had gone to bed around 11:15, put in her earplugs, and slept through the night. However, investigators identified one wedding guest whose timeline of the evening was initially unclear. He had not attended the rehearsal dinner with the rest of the party, claiming he had stayed behind the property. His hesitant and uncooperative demeanor during initial phone conversations raised immediate red flags for the detectives. Determined to resolve the discrepancy, Detective Cole and his partner traveled to the guest's residence in Northern California, arriving unannounced. Upon face-to-face contact, the man's attitude changed. He became highly cooperative and apologized for his previous tone. His wife provided photographs from her phone showing that he had, in fact, attended the dinner, entirely clearing his timeline. The guest also voluntarily provided a DNA sample to assist the investigation. Part 10. The disgruntled contractor and the estranged son. With the wedding party cleared, detectives expanded their focus to other individuals who had recently accessed the property. Because Nancy had been preparing to sell Paradise Ranch to focus on her missionary work, several local contractors had been performing repairs on the estate. Among the names discovered in Nancy's personal notes was Sean Bloom, a general contractor who had recently worked on the house. Amanda informed detectives that her mother and Sean had engaged in a highly contentious dispute over the quality of his work and the timeline of his payments. Nancy had ultimately fired him, refusing to issue payment until the property closed escrow. Sean Bloom was brought in for questioning. He did not attempt to hide his dislike of Nancy, and text messages on his phone confirmed he had threatened legal action against her. However, After a thorough interview, Sean voluntarily provided a DNA sample, which was sent to the state crime lab for analysis. Another potential avenue of investigation involved Nancy's estranged son, Chad. Amanda explained that her brother had harbored significant anger and resentment toward their mother and her religious beliefs. The relationship had deteriorated to the point where they had not spoken face-to-face in 5 years, and Nancy was barred from seeing Chad's children. Yet, on the night before her disappearance, Nancy had reached out to Chad via text message, attempting to find common ground. He was the last person to exchange messages with her. When contacted by detectives, Chad expressed a deep distrust of law enforcement, refusing to come to the station or provide a voluntary DNA sample. Suspicious of his resistance, detectives placed him under surveillance. After observing him consume several beers at a local establishment, deputies stopped his vehicle and arrested him for driving with an open container. While the minor charge was eventually dismissed, investigators successfully secured the discarded beer bottles from his truck, extracting his DNA for testing. Within days, the crime lab returned the results. Both Sean Bloom and Chad were completely excluded. The unknown male DNA profile recovered from the bloody handprint on Nancy's pillow did not match either man, nor did it match any profile in the national database. The investigation had hit a devastating wall. Part 11. The Virtual Fence. With all immediate suspects cleared and no active leads, the detectives refused to give up. They decided to employ a cutting-edge, highly sophisticated investigative tool that had rarely been used in the state of California. Geofencing. Geofencing is a digital technology that allows law enforcement, with a court-approved warrant, to request location data from Google for a highly specific geographic area and time frame. Because almost all modern smartphones, whether Apple or Android, utilize Google location services, Google records the physical coordinates of devices as they move through the world. Detectives utilized the timeline established by Nancy's phone records. At 12:17 on the night of her disappearance, Nancy's phone had initiated a call to 911 that lasted 0 seconds before being abruptly disconnected. This provided an exact 3-minute window of when the crime occurred. Investigators drew a virtual perimeter around Nancy's cottage and requested the device identifiers for any phone active within that boundary between midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning. When the data finally arrived from Google, detectives began the meticulous process of filtering out the known devices belonging to the wedding guests. Suddenly, a single unrecognized device identifier caught their attention. The data showed a cell phone active inside Nancy's studio cottage at exactly 1:33 and 1:52 in the morning, the precise time frame when Nancy disappeared. Detectives secured a secondary warrant to obtain the subscriber information associated with that specific device. In November of 2018, the results arrived. The phone belonged to Carlo Fuentes Flores. The name was immediately familiar to the investigators. Carlo Fuentes Flores was a local painter who had been hired to paint the deck and trim of the main house at Paradise Ranch in the weeks prior to the disappearance. To those who knew him, Carlo was a mild-mannered, hard-working family man. He was a devoted father who spoke constantly of his daughter and had worked successfully in the local trades for over 20 years. He was known as polite, professional, and entirely nonviolent. When detectives had interviewed him early in the investigation, he had been warm and cooperative, even recounting how Nancy had kindly given him tamales and read Bible scriptures with him while he worked. However, a forensic examination of Carlo's digital life revealed a dark, hidden psychology. Beneath his respectable exterior, Carlo harbored deep-seated, unusual fantasies. His search history was filled with searches for older women, specifically using terms like cougar and sexy lingerie. Nancy Woodrum was approximately 15 to 20 years older than Carlo, aligning with the specific patterns found in his search history. Furthermore, investigators discovered that Carlo frequently hired escorts and had recorded numerous videos of himself engaging in sexual acts with various women. He was living a double life, a dedicated family man by day, and a deeply troubled, secretive individual by night. Part 12. The Apprehension and the Truth. To secure an arrest, detectives needed absolute proof. They initiated a covert surveillance operation, following Carlo as he went about his daily routine. When Carlo stopped at a local restaurant for lunch with his wife, investigators watched him drink from a glass Coca-Cola bottle. The moment he left the restaurant, detectives recovered the discarded bottle and rushed it to the state DNA laboratory. The results were definitive. The DNA from the Coca-Cola bottle was an identical match to the unknown male DNA found within the bloody handprint on Nancy's pillow. On the morning of his arrest, Carlo was brought into the interrogation room at the Templeton Sheriff's Station. Detective Cole and his partner conducted the interview with quiet, methodical precision. Initially, Carlo maintained his innocent persona, claiming he only worked on the property and had no knowledge of Nancy's disappearance. Detectives slowly began to present the evidence, establishing that he knew the layout of the property and Nancy's living arrangements. When Detective Cole directly asked Carlo if he was involved in her disappearance, Carlo denied it. The detectives then revealed that they possessed undeniable DNA evidence, placing him in Nancy's bedroom on the night she vanished. The psychological shift was instantaneous. Carlo's posture collapsed, his breathing became shallow, and he began to weep. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "I want to be honest with you guys." Carlo initially attempted to frame the death as a tragic accident. He claimed he had returned to the property in the middle of the night to retrieve a ladder for a job the next morning. As he was backing his truck up, he claimed he accidentally struck Nancy, who had walked outside to investigate the noise. He claimed he carried her back inside to help her, where she subsequently collapsed. Detectives immediately challenged the plausibility of his story. If it was an accident, why was there blood spatter on the headboard and walls? Why was her bedding missing? Under intense, steady pressure, the fabricated story fell apart. Carlo admitted that he had gone to the property with the specific, dark intention of sexually assaulting Nancy. He entered her cottage while she slept, violently assaulted her when she woke up, and subsequently raped her. To prevent her from identifying him, Carlo took the beige pillow and suffocated her. He then wrapped her body in her own bedding, loaded her into the bed of his truck, and drove away into the night. When asked where Nancy's body was, Carlo made a surprising offer. I would like to take you. Part 13. The Carrizo Plain and the End of the Journey. In the custody of the detectives, Carlo directed the caravan of police vehicles east away from the fertile hills of Paso Robles and toward the stark, desolate wilderness of the Carrizo Plain. The journey lasted over an hour, winding through barren, dusty terrain on the border of Kern County. As they searched the vast, open plains, Carlo struggled to identify the exact location. The landscape was homogeneous, and the passage of 6 months had altered the vegetation. He stopped at several different coordinates, growing increasingly frustrated and emotional. Detective Cole, shivering in the cold desert wind, began to fear that they would never find her. Yet, as he scanned the terrain, he noticed a small, unnatural pile of rocks situated several yards off the road. He pointed to the rocks and asked Carlo if they looked familiar. Carlo looked over, collapsed to his knees, and began to weep. Oh my God, yes, he sobbed. Detectives approached the pile of rocks and discovered human skeletal remains, partially scattered by local wildlife. The skull and major bones were recovered. Carlo had not even taken the time to bury Nancy. He had simply placed her body on the ground and covered her with a few local rocks before driving away. Upon returning to the station, Carlo wrote a formal letter of apology to Nancy's family, expressing his deep regret for the senseless tragedy he had caused. Though Carlo's defense team attempted to suppress his confession by claiming he did not fully comprehend his Miranda rights in English, the judge denied the motion, noting that Carlo spoke excellent English in his daily life and in recorded phone calls to his wife from jail. In January of 2022, on the first day of his trial, Carlo chose to enter a slow plea, allowing the judge to review all of the evidence and find him guilty of first-degree murder with a special circumstance of rape. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The community of Paso Robles gathered at a local vineyard to celebrate Nancy's beautiful life. Amanda and her daughter continue Nancy's beloved tradition of horseback riding, riding her favorite horse, Montana, through the scenic hills, keeping her memory alive in the land she loved. Part 14. The Psychology of Deception. When we examine the cases of Corey Richens and Carlo Fuentes Flores side by side, we observe striking similarities in the psychological mechanics of criminal deception. Both individuals possessed a remarkable ability to compartmentalize their lives, maintaining respectable, even admirable public personas while harboring dark, destructive motivations. Corey Richins sought to control her narrative through the power of the written word. By writing a book on grief, she attempted to position herself as the ultimate victim, leveraging her maternal role to deflect suspicion and exploit her community's sympathy for financial gain. Her deception was active, creative, and highly manipulative. Carlo Fuentes Flores, conversely, utilized a passive, quiet persona to mask his violent impulses. To his family and employers, he was the humble, hardworking craftsman. Yet, his internal world was dominated by secret desires and a complete disregard for the life of a woman who had treated him with nothing but kindness. In both instances, it was not a single dramatic piece of evidence that broke the case, but the slow, methodical accumulation of details by dedicated investigators. In Utah, the combination of financial records, cell phone searches, text messages, and a compromised associate brought down a calculated killer. In California, a novel technological breakthrough combined with old-fashioned physical surveillance and DNA matching solved a mystery that seemed destined to remain cold. The resolution of these cases serves as a profound reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. The families of Eric Richins and Nancy Woodrum faced unimaginable grief, yet they stood firm in their pursuit of the truth, supporting law enforcement and ensuring that the memories of their loved ones were honored. Through their efforts and the tireless work of the justice system, the truth was revealed, proving that even the most carefully constructed deceptions will eventually crumble in the light of justice.